I have had multiple doctors on my podcast who have done medicine for 10, 15, 20 years in the fee-for-service model and then opened a DPC. It's like, you're not dead yet, man. You work so hard to be a doctor. You're a great doctor. You can still do that. And they're like, what do you mean? I thought I had to just retire, quit medicine because I'm so burned out. And I love especially talking to doctors who are further on in their careers who are still getting up the muster to say, like, F the system, with whatever is left in me, I'm going to do this the right way.
Hi, guys, and welcome to the House Call Vet Cafe podcast. I'm Dr. Eve Harrison. I'm a full-time integrative concierge house call veterinarian in Los Angeles, and I help other vets to build their unique mobile practices on their terms. This podcast is for and by house call and mobile veterinarians, so it is meant to give our community a platform to connect, to share our stories, to lift each other up, and to support each other. Most of us work solo as lone wolves, right? So for me, it's been really powerful to be able to physically hear the voices of my colleagues from all over the world and to get a chance to feel that we truly are part of a community of very real other human beings who get it. While you may be alone in that little bubble of your own vehicle when you're on the road seeing patients, I welcome you to join our community by tuning into our own podcast when you're on your way to your next house call. Whether you're a super experienced house call vet with 30 years of experience, you're a brand new prospective house call vet just looking to get started, or you're house call curious, there will be something for you in this podcast. Each episode, you will hear interviews from other mobile veterinarians just like yourself who are doing unique and innovative things, vets who are sharing their stories, their struggles and challenges, and you can also look forward to hearing valuable information and perspectives from specialists and experts outside of our micro niche. And finally, if becoming a house call veterinarian is something that you've been thinking about exploring, or you're looking for some extra support getting your own mobile practice to feel more profitable and sustainable for you, check out the information in the show notes about my course and our above and beyond supportive private community for members only, plus our monthly group coaching sessions within the House Call Vet Academy. You can also check out my free public Facebook group, which is also called the House Call Vet Cafe, the same name as this podcast, and which is a warm and cozy community for mobile vets to support each other in professional and personal development, in creative entrepreneurship, and in friendship. So thank you guys for spending time with me today. Let's dive into the episode.
Hey, everyone. We have a very exciting guest with us today. We have Dr. Maryal Concepcion, who is a Hooman doctor, Hooman, meaning she works on humans. Not only is she a human, but she works on humans. So this is going to be a really fascinating conversation because we met each other at the Take Medicine Back Summit. We both spoke. I spoke anyway. I'm pretty sure you spoke in some capacity as well. I think we were like, holy shit, we are the alternate reality versions of each other. We both have podcasts. We both have similar perspectives on private equity and medicine and different practice models that we're doing and kind of spearheading certain aspects of things in our respective professions. But anyway, so let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Concepcion. She is a Sacramento native and she is an MD FAAFP, which I don't know what that is. We'll have to find out. She is a Filipinx creator and connector. She is a mom to 2 young boys and married to Jeremiah, a fellow rural family physician. So you've got medical family. That's amazing. She is the founder and host of the podcast, My DPC Story, by featuring DPC and direct care physicians. You guys are going to really want to tune in for this because this is where our similarity comes in. So in September of 2021, she opened Big Trees MD, the first direct primary care in Arnold, a rural town of 4,000 in the Stanislaus National Forest located in Northern California. Her clinic was created, this is another amazing thing, as a micropractice, telemedicine, and home visit model. And after overhead was met, she branched out into renting a brick-and-mortar space for her DPC. All right, welcome, Maryal, and I'm really excited to hear from you. I know everything you're about to say is going to be like mind-blowing for people listening right now, but welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting to connect in a longer format, I should say, because when we were at the conference, I mean, you know how all conferences are, you meet people, they're cool, but you don't really get as much time as you would like to chat. And it was mind-blowing. Just like you said, like we're living alternate realities, but it totally paints a picture of when corporate equity plays a role tries to butt their heads into taking care of others. And I consider our dog and cat our late cat, fellow humans in this house. It's like nobody should be coming between the relationship that my pets have with their vet and that my patients have with me. And I know that you are speaking to the same thing. And it's so cool to be chatting. And I will say that, one of the things that was so cool also is to learn that you do home visits for pets. And because one of my dearest friends who I went to UC Davis with, Dr. Michaela Yell, she's also a vet who does only home visit. And so it's just like, I had never thought about, wow, like, how could you do that in the human world? And then when you said that, I was like, there's really smart people out there. Like, where was I joining this boat? So it's great to finally be on this boat and to be chatting.
Oh, I love it. I mean, I only have met actually like a couple vets who did house calls, and it wasn't in like the sort of environment where I could sit down and be like, okay, let me pick your brain. What is this? What is that? Like, it was like, unfortunately, during like hospice type of situation where we were like scrambling. And so it was really difficult, but I'm also just really excited to have a little bit of a long form conversation with you, and we can crack open the mysteries with our respective listeners and things like that in tow, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is really exciting. So I always start my podcast this way. I would like to know, very important question, do you eat any snacks when you're in the car on the way to see your patients?
That's a great question. On the way to see patients, I would say it's more emergency. Oh my God, I've forgotten to eat, and I know I'm going to be there for at least 2.5 hours. So let me shove processed food into my mouth. My choice snack is the Hawaiian chips, the Maui, sweet Maui onion ones in the purple bag. Y'all know what I'm talking about. When I'm driving to Sacramento to go to the airport. But usually I try to keep the chips away when I'm driving to a patient's house.
When I eat snacks in the car and it's something like chips, I'm like, oh, Fluffy's gonna love me. Like, he'll smell like it no matter how much you hand sanitizer or like whatever you wash your hands. The animals know.
Yeah.
Like, oh, someone's gonna like this treat. My hands today. But yeah, I definitely know that purple bag. Like, that's really funny. It's like, you have to know it. It's a really specific thing. So anyway, yeah, that makes total sense. Oh my God, I have so many questions for you. I'm trying to go in order, but I have questions that are coming. So, okay, so let's see. Well, actually, first, like, what is your travel radius? And you alluded to the fact that it's usually an emergency situation, or is that just like you just haven't eaten during the day?
It's the latter. It's not emergency
Okay.
like the patients, because I make it very clear when people are onboarding in our practice that I'm not a mobile hospital. So I do not do codes, IVs, all of those things. But in terms of the emergency, it's more of like, oh, geez, I totally been busy forgetting to eat all day. Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Yeah, because we also don't handle emergencies in
Yeah.
health. There are a very few number of house call vets that I've known that have attempted to do it, and they either literally died from like stress. That's not even funny at all. But like the one person I know that was like actually doing it, like he passed away a few
Wow.
years ago. It was very, very sad. But I was like, wow, you are stretched so thin. You are
Yeah.
giving so much. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of a weird thing for me to say, I guess. But everyone else that I know that's tried it just sort of was like, oh yeah, that's not going to be a viable practice model. Yeah, for me. So yeah, and it comes up a lot. There are a lot of people who are like, hey Eve, I actually have this vision of like an ER, like a traveling ER, and I'm like, I'll help you try, but it's a bit much to do in the home. Like certainly
Yeah.
not codes or IVs, like you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
So can you tell me like what kind of medicine do you do, and how did you get started with that?
Yeah.
Like what is your
So,
stuff? And what is the
yep.
what are those letters?
Yeah.
FAAFP. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's perfect. They're tied together. So family medicine is my specialty. So the American Academy of Family Medicine Fellow, so the F is for Fellow of the AAFP, so Fellow of the American Academy of Family Practice. So basically, it's not all that special. It's like here I was at midnight paying my like $217 and saying like, these are all the things I've done. So I became a fellow. So it's like, I don't think it's all that difficult. I think it's like, you just be a doctor, and then all of a sudden you could pay the extra fees, just like board certification, to have a thing that says you're a doctor, even though you have a degree and you already paid a lot of money for that. So I don't consider myself any different because I have those letters, other than, I know that I am a rural trained family doctor. I grew up in Sacramento. I went to UC Davis for college, and then I went out to Omaha, Nebraska for medical school. And it was in Omaha that we were thrusted into our third and fourth year in medical school. Our third and fourth years are clinical years. And so we go from the first 2 years being book learners to then deploying our book learning and learning how to do the art of deploying the book learning. And so I was very grateful to have gone to rural Nebraska. It's literally the geographic center of the United States of America, the Victorian capital of Nebraska. If you are a big history buff, Sears catalog Victorian homes are alive and well in Superior, Nebraska. But we were in this place where there's only family medicine doctors and the non-physician providers, but your access to care is high quality when you have well-trained rural doctors. And so that's what I trained under. I tell people that 6:30, my first day of rotating, Dr. Tim Blakey, who was a 1979 Creighton grad, said, "Hey, like, you're doing a scope." And I'm like, what? I literally just finished like neuro and cardio, and now you're handing me an endoscopy scope to do a colonoscopy? Like, oh, okay, I guess this is what family medicine doctors do. And so I think it was amazing to be thrust into this model where it was shown to me what the power of family medicine is versus many people think that family medicine doctors are, and I'm quoting a first year resident, referralologists, which is absolutely insulting.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't even know how the first year resident who has not had too much exposure is able to already say that word. It's crazy, but it was modeled to me what family medicine could be. And so when I went to residency for training, family medicine after medical school is a 3-year fellowship. You're a resident basically working nonstop in all of the clinical specialties. So for my training program, we were an unopposed program in the world of human medicine. An opposed program is a training center where there's multiple specialties training under one hood, one hospital, corporation, et cetera. In an unopposed residency, which is where I went to and my husband went to, we were the only residents in the hospital. So we did ER, ICU, delivered babies, went to clinic, went to the peds clinic, ENT, all of these things, so that we would be who we wanted to be, that we saw in medical school, these rural family medicine doctors. And so that's what guided, my journey as a resident. That guided what I wanted to learn, what I wanted to solidify as a resident, to be confident in. And then that's what also guided me to look for positions after residency. And that's why I live in Arnold, California, which is a town of around 4,000-ish people on a good day in the, like you said, the Stanislaus National Forest.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that, how you had that sort of model of the highly competent in a broad variety of skills and competencies and things like that. And you had that in your head when you were seeking your training, and that was your goal, to be able to do that. I relate to that a lot. Like, I've never actually worked in a rural area other than one summer between first and second years of veterinary school. I worked in the Cook Island in a place that was like, I mean, more than rural. It was like there wasn't anything, there was nothing. So it was like a bunch of vets from New Zealand, Australia, England, and me as a vet student, like kind of learning, and they're all just like trying to figure things out, a lot of surgical stuff with you just like pretty much doing the surgery with your bare hands, like it's like that level of thing. And I remember thinking, like, the animals that did really well were in the hands of the vets that had they were really good at surgery, first of all. And second of all, like, you could see the spectrum of their capacity to handle whatever came at them.
Yeah.
And I remember that was a very powerful moment for me too. And it sort of seems like there's a little bit of a resonance between your seeing these rural vets or being in the rural environment and having to just like show up, fix it, you know? Yeah. So that's really inspiring. And I love that sort of. I had actually started out in a surgical residency because I was like, oh, I need to know how to do surgery. But I ended up feeling that I ultimately wanted the more relatable veterinary medicine, like the boots on the ground and like treat whatever comes your way. Like, my aunt has a question about this cat. It was like, can I answer it? No, I only know about surgery. I don't know how to treat fleas. That was me at one time, actually. But anyway.
No, I love that. That's how I relate to that, because I couldn't only talk about the eye. Like, if I went into ophthalmology, I would have quit years ago, because I would get too bored. And so I needed to be able to speak to lots of things for me to be professionally stimulated because I love the, all right, and I'm sure it happens in the non-human world as well, but it's like your appointment is for this, but actually it's about for this and the four other things that come
Okay.
up during the conversation or that they've written on their little grocery list that they have that nobody was privy to except their purse. And so, yeah, like we cover it all because it's really hard to separate your eyeball from your cardiovascular health.
It really is. It's all
Yeah.
very integrated. I really love how you said that. And also in your bio, how you're, a creator and a connector. As a
Mhm.
person who's a creator and a connector, you're connecting all parts of the body system. You're connecting different people in different environments. And I think I relate to those things too, creator and connector. And I think that narrowness is very hard for people like us who are sort of like to
Yeah.
connect everything and
Yeah.
everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for telling me about that background. And now I want to shift a little bit. So, your podcast is called My DPC Story, and that's the type of practice that you have now, including the house call and telemedicine component. So, I first want to start out for our listeners, who most of them don't know what DPC is. What is
Sure.
DPC and how does it relate to what you do?
Yeah. So DPC stands for direct primary care. At the heart of it all, it's primary care as it should have always remained without the insurance companies butting their heads into our health as humans in my world. Direct primary care is basically the direct relationship between a patient and their doctor. So my patients pay me directly. Yes, we encourage everybody to have insurance for what insurance was supposed to be for massive hospital bills, surgeries, emergencies, true emergencies, having a baby. But insurance does not, in my opinion, need to be covering the wax in your ear and a doctor to remove the wax in your ear or for me to treat hypertension. That can be done very inexpensively, especially if you're focusing on prevention versus the sick codes that our fee for service system is so obsessed with. So, direct primary care is literally the old school medicine before Nixon and HMOs and Kaiser, where a patient could just say, "Hey, doc, whatever, I have this thing and I need your help. Sounds good. I'll come over." And when I did open as a telemedicine home visit model, it was literally that small town doctor in a small town in, 2021 in Northern California, figuring out what my patients needed because my patients were able to tell me. And then I was able to go outside of the insurance system to say, these are the options I can find for you: cash based labs, cash based medicine, cash based imaging. You can choose to use your insurance, but I can't guarantee what the cost is going to be out of pocket at the end of the day. Or your TSH is $6. Which one would you like me to put on the order? So it's a very empowering model of primary care because it takes out the third party dictator of denial of access to care. And we are able to, as DPC doctors and other specialists in the human medicine world, because people use DPC as a business model. I'm happy to share more about that, but we're able to literally focus on our patients. And so our patients invest in us. We are creating these businesses that our practices are able to thrive under so that we can be more autonomous, more at peace, more healthy at the end of the day. Because if you're not burned out by the banging your head against the wall trying to change something in the system and 16 administrative committees of which none of these people went to medical school are making medical decisions, it's a lot more freeing and a lot more relaxing. So you don't have these layers of things that didn't have anything to do with the care of the patient that are removed.
Fantastic. That was an awesome description. And I think for our listeners and for you also just to know how the veterinary, I just want to like take a moment to compare and contrast because
Yeah.
there's some really interesting differences in the premise of how we can practice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting because we as the veterinarians are not yet at that end stage damage from the insurance companies. Like right
Yeah.
now, our clients, we're all DPC essentially, not in the practice model that you're talking about, but we're all
Yeah.
direct paid. So the insurance doesn't typically get in between us and our patients, but the private equity does and the corporations do. So I know that phenomenon very, very well that we're trying to like get away from that and things like that. But we do have insurance companies that are now offering us like look at that. We can collect the payment. You don't even have to do it. And I'm like, no, 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 don't you dare. Don't you dare. I do not accept. Right. So
Yeah.
I think you guys are in a place where you're finally taking back medicine from the insurance companies. And we're right on that brink of them doing that same shit to us. And so, I mean, I love that you've like kind of removed the barriers. It's between you and your patient. And I also just love that you kind of like conjured up the image of like the old school vet doctor, with the bag and
Yep.
like that's how I sort of fancy myself as well,
Yeah.
like get me on there, pay. I'll be over in a few, like call me in the morning, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And it's like really beautiful and almost like it feels whimsical, but it's like, no, that's the basis of what it should be.
Yeah.
This should be like some fancy new thing, it's like it's actually reverting back to the way it used to be in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the beginning of my podcast, the intro says, direct primary care is an innovative alternative path to insurance-driven healthcare. And I use the word innovative because it captures people's ideas that this is new. But then absolutely the reality is, whoa, this is like on 1950s television. Like that's pretty cool. But we love that because I want to just call out I feel for you guys in the same way that I feel for our human equivalent, like the doctors who were in the early stages of insurance saying these exact same things. Oh, we'll go ahead and do like we don't have to take on that administrative burden. We'll do it for you. The doctors definitely thought that they were going to be able to take more care of their patients in a higher quality way.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so sad that, you know, doctors in general, we go into professions where we're taking care of other people. And then it's not so surprising in a capitalist society where somebody takes advantage of that. So that really irks me that the attempt is happening in the vet world. But it also reminds me that, like, we are dealt the cards that we are dealt. And so for us in the human world, we didn't have that conversation. We went into training with the expectation that at the end of the visit, you're going to code an RVU, so relative value unit code, a 99213, a 99214.
That's
And
nauseating.
yeah. And
Awful.
like I give massive props to those doctors who in the human world understood very early on in residency, like, what is this? Like, this isn't at all what doctoring was when I signed up to be a doctor when I was aspiring in undergrad. And so it's very like, I say that because I hope that the vet world never gets there. But it's also sad when I see other countries who are like, oh, we're going to emulate the fee for service system. And I'm like, or not, because you can see what horrible outcomes we're getting. Maternity mortality rates, the people who have Medi-Cal in our state are being discriminated against because you have the quote unquote poor man's insurance. It's like, how did this become, anything but you're a human, you get a human doctor. It's so maddening. And so it is wonderful to be a part of this movement where we're on the right side of history, where we're taking medicine back, like you said, and we are focusing on like, cool. In my world, like you're a Homo sapien sapien. Fantastic, because that's what I trained for. Like, cannot do zebras, cannot do cats, but man, I went to school to take care of you. I don't care what insurance you have, do not have. Like, I don't care because I don't ask. I encourage you to have insurance, but not for me to clean out your ear.
Right. I mean, it's so clear how we've been played, like we've literally been played by all sorts of outside interests that would like to capitalize on our profit off the backs of
Our degrees.
our degrees. Right. Yeah. And as I had said a little bit, I take medicine back. I feel that veterinary medicine is anywhere from like 10 to 20 years behind human medicine, but we're on that exact same path. It's like uncanny, like everything that has happened to human medicine, I see it happening. And we are so, as a profession, blind to it, very, very blind to it, naive. Like we studied medicine. We love animals.
Yeah.
Like we're Homo sapiens, sapiens.
I was an anthro major, so that's why I get down into like the genus and yeah, it's a thing.
love
I had to remember these clades that nobody needs to know ever, but I knew them and I aced them, but I have no use for them in like actual life. But yes, so shout out to Dr. Henry McHenry and Lynn Isbell and all these people. You might know them if you're a vet from UC Davis, but like I did not use these skills in the world of human medicine. But anyways, I digress. Yeah. Well, I will say also though, if you are like flabbergasted by this, that you guys are lagging behind. And I say this to listeners, there's almost 200 physicians who have shared examples of how it is going to be if the vet world, continue down this pathway. And I would say that anybody who's listening and is aware of this, it's just like the power of me seeing a family medicine doctor do full scope medicine, the power of knowing that there is a different way. I do think that people are so fed up with the human system, and with veterinarians being humans, it's like you guys are able to, unless you're furry, but I digress. It's the whole like, oh, separate conversation. I had to not say that because like I just pictured this. I will say a side story, but like there was an emergency situation and the parent was being asked to answer an emergency question for their child. And they were like, meow, meow, meow. And it's like, okay, I digress. But you guys are humans. And I hope that your frustration and anger about this is not okay for us, because we are the people taking care of the animals. We can't take care of the animals if we're not even going to be around. Like, unfortunately, your that, colleague who tried and was super stressed and passed away. Like, I hope that you guys are also able to teach the young people earlier than we did to say, like, you have the option to not take insurance. You have the option to do things that are not according to private equity and insurance companies. And so I say that because you guys still have the opportunity to change, whereas we have a harder opportunity to change because of the years, like you just called out.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are definitely entrenched in it. We're entrenched in our own ways that, private equity is so normalized. Like, thankfully, we don't have the insurance standing in our way
Yeah.
yet. They're trying, but just the private equity itself has been so normalized. And there are people who've never known anything else. Like, they've graduated from vet school, they
Mhm.
went straight into corporate practice, and everything else seems wrong to. It's very, very interesting. And there's almost no getting through to people like this because it's all they've ever known. But what's really interesting to me about the DPC, and that really calls to me, is that, like, the model itself is like we get direct pay, we don't deal with insurance. But really what undercurrent is kind of what you alluded to sort of branching out, going out on your own, doing something a little different, something unconventional, and having to really step away from the norm in your profession to do it. And that's what is like, that's just like what we're doing with our house call practices and starting our own thing. And it turns out a DPC practice can be a house call practice
Yeah.
in human medicine. It feels funny to be calling it human medicine to your faith. You are the human doctor, but that's what we vets call regular doctors, like doctors of Homo sapiens sapiens.
And I don't identify as a fuzzy. So yes, I will own the Homo sapien fibling. Love it.
Not a furry. I'm not a furry. I prefer it. Nope. It's hilarious. Oh, but yeah, I mean, I love that aspect. And it's sort of like you guys are like the renegades, like we are.
Yeah.
We're like, no boss, no middleman, no one.
Mhm.
Me, the client, the animal in the home.
Yep.
We're gonna get the job done. I mean, it's just how it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And you're gonna pay me directly. There's no insurance, no nothing, no quotas, nothing like that. That's a big problem, which we talked about. We'll talk about that further at another time. Yeah, that's a real tricky thing. But I think on the subject of tricky things, I have spoken to other human doctors who were interested in starting either a house call practice or a DPC practice. And they were very scared to go out on their own because of all of, like, the liability, like the risk to the license and the fees and all of this insurance and things that you have to have. And we have to have insurance and things like that. But it sounded like a lot more oppressive for MDs, DOs, and, the like. Is that one of the big challenges that you've seen with doctors trying to go out and do their own DPC practice?
I think it represents the challenges that people put in front of themselves, because typically we're type A personalities and we want everything to be very clean at the end of the day. And I think that a lot of people say things without even researching them because they can get intimidating. And so I will
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
in the state of California, direct primary care is considered like concierge medicine.
Right.
So if you are with a malpractice company where they understand that you are taking higher quality care, you're going to have better outcomes, you take fewer patients, the malpractice rates go down. So it's significantly less than what I would have been in fee for service, because they expect the complete opposite of direct primary care. But when it comes to the things that keep people from going into private practice, I hear a lot of fears, right? And so that's why I say, like, it's just in the grab bag of like, what's going to intimidate me today? Or like, what's going to be my reason for not taking the next leap? Even though at the end of the day, if I really looked at, am I happy with what I am doing? And the answer is no, nobody deserves to stay there. If they can financially plan for something to leave, talk in the same language as another human, like whatever language that be, because I do not understand my dogs as much as I would like to. But it's like when a doctor is able to say, like, one to themselves, I can't do this anymore. That's one step that they have to take. And
Yeah.
then two, like to be okay with, I don't know everything. I need help. That's sometimes a challenge for people. No problem. No judgment. It's just like that's
That's
how it
right.
is.
Especially
And
the
it's
type A
like,
people
yeah. And
for help. Yeah.
yep. And there are so many people in the direct primary care community, at least, who are like, oh my God, if I can help you onto this ship, like, how can I help you? Like, I cannot stand that you're suffering like I was before. Like, it's that community feeling that is very common. And so by asking somebody, like, I don't know, or asking Dr. Google, like, you literally can Google direct primary care, anything, book, podcast, conference, and find these things. And, so those are the big things I would think. But then all of the fine tuning comes into play. Like if you are moving to another area after graduation from professional school and nobody knows you in the area, how do you market? How do you financially plan for this? Because you're about to have a kid. Like, how do you do all these things? Someone has been there and done that because so many people are already doing this form of medicine that it's like, all right, like I love to say, like, give me your fears, give them to me. Come on, like bring them out because we got answers. As a community, we got answers. And if we don't have answers, we can figure it out together because there's so many people doing it in all 50 states. And there's DPC laws protecting DPC in 34 states as of, I want to say like end of August. Alaska was the most recent. But yeah, so I would say that those are the most common things that I would respond to if someone is asking about like those hesitancies.
And I just mic drop right now because as I was like saying these things, it didn't occur to me that this is literally the same limiting beliefs and like stories people tell themselves about why they can't start a house call practice. And I was like, but in the human world, it sounds really hard. I'm like, no, I just got played again by like these people who are like really, really believing their limiting beliefs about why they
Yeah.
can't do it and why they can't make the jump. And like you said, there's so many people doing this, so much goodwill and desire in the community to help lift everyone. And I guess I would say a common equivalent would be people get very concerned about paying for their own health insurance. And it's like, they're just another expense like any other thing. And the goal of having your own business is that it's profitable and it can pay for that. That's how a business works, right?
That and because we're thinking in the what does healthcare actually cost world. Like, for example, I don't want to have the debate, even though there's a federal law that says insurance is supposed to cover a mammogram. I have no idea if mammograms are done on animals, so are non-Homo sapiens sapiens. So I like, I say that, yeah. But like in our Homo sapiens sapien world, a mammogram is supposed to be covered by insurance. That does not specify if it's a 2D or a 3D mammogram. So if you miss cancer because your insurance covered a 2D mammogram and that wasn't even an option to get a 3D, that sounds like amazing human care, high quality, patients first care right there, right? So I choose to pay cash for my mammogram because I literally hand the lady like I do money if I ever was going to go to the grocery store and buy bread. Here's my $200 and the order that I ordered for myself. And thank you so much. I'm having a 3D mammogram today. Great. Like it is literally that simple. And I choose to shop for my healthcare rather than to rely on what the insurance covers. So like even with labs, our family does not do insurance-based labs. We pay for our annual panels with cash. We specify that on the order. We specify that on the orders of patients who wish to pay cash, but literally like it's like a restaurant menu. How much is a CT? How much is like I said, mammogram? How much is an ultrasound? How much is a carotid ultrasound? It's like Diet Coke is $2.99. That was like prices 10 years ago, no longer anymore. But the idea is so mind bending for people who are like, well, I have my pile of coupons over here that I have cut because I value saving my money for groceries. You're telling me that like I can shop for healthcare? This is so mind blowing. And it's so insulting to us as a culture in America that like it's a fleecing of this, just like, big tobacco went into food. It's like the same idea. It's like, this is so messed up that we are dealing with these consequences because people wanted to take advantage of other people.
Yeah, and speaking of big things, big food or big candy took over veterinary medicine. We have Mars owning half our shit. Like,
Oh my gosh.
it's crazy. It's crazy. We could go on for ages about these gripes here, for sure. Hey everyone, this is Dr. Eve Harrison here. For my fellow house call veterinarians who feel the daily weight of solo practice, and for those dreaming of mobile practice but unsure where to begin, this one's for you. I'm super excited to announce that registration is now open for our 4th annual House Call and Mobile Vet Virtual Conference, February 1st and 2nd, 2025. So mark your calendars, because whether you're struggling with pricing, boundaries, work-life balance in your current mobile practice, or you're looking for a clear roadmap to start your house call journey, we've got you covered. This isn't just another CE event. It's certainly not another corporate CE event. This is the only event of its kind taught for house call vets by house call vets that covers exactly what is relevant to you. We're diving deep into the real challenges of mobile practice, from managing red flag clients, to firing clients who aren't a good match, to knowing what to do when business is slow, to marketing, to starting a house call practice, to all sorts of integrative and holistic gems, standard Western house call medicine pearls, to working through grief and challenges during IHE, to tackling imposter syndrome. We've got you covered in all of these ways. You'll leave with actionable strategies to increase your income, protect your time, and build a practice that truly works for you. Here's what 2 of our attendees had to say. Thank you, Eve, for an amazing conference. I love how you spoke from your heart and how you and the speakers were so encouraging. I've been thinking for a while about going mobile solo, and you made me feel empowered, knowledgeable, and not alone in designing the work lifestyle I want. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. That was Dr. S, and she is now an active house call vet, which makes me so happy. And then we have another testimonial from Dr. K. This conference is so fab. The small group breakout sessions are perfect for introverts, learning practical and personal skills I can put into practice immediately. Worth every penny, and so nice to soak in the wonderful collegial vibe of my people, my community. So if you're feeling excited, inspired, and ready to sign up, don't wait too long. Early bird registration is open only through January 1st, 2025. And the first 50 people to register will receive a special bonus package that I've personally curated to help you implement everything that you've learned. Head to the link in the show notes or www.dreveharrison.com to secure your spot and join a community of veterinarians who understand exactly what you're going through, because we're living it too. I'm Dr. Eve Harrison, and I can't wait to show you just how amazing mobile practice can be with the right support and community behind you, and to celebrate with those of you who already know exactly how life-giving this path can be. Now back to our show. I had a clarifying question. So you were talking about concierge medicine, and you were talking about, I want to kind of clarify some terminology for a little bit. So concierge medicine versus DPC versus, I think the language you used was like pay per service or
Fee for service.
fee for service. Can you clarify the difference between those?
Absolutely.
Paradigm that you're in, which
Yep.
you are discussing them. Yeah.
So fee for service and concierge are tied in that they are insurance accepting models. Fee for service is the people are cattle, get them through as fast as possible, deny people access to care because of their insurance company. That's fee for service. Concierge like goes on those coattails and says, I'm going to charge to take care of fewer patients and still bill their insurance. Primary care is the traditional, quote unquote, pure direct primary care is, I don't take insurance, I just take care of my patients. And so they do charge a membership fee usually. And again, this is a very general statement. Most of the movement is a cash-based membership model. So people pay monthly. So if you don't like it, if you move to another place, it's just month to month. Some people have annual options, but in general, the difference is that we, yes, take care of fewer patients per panel. We are a concierge option for everyday Americans, and we do not bill insurance. Concierge practices, like if I were to go to San Francisco and want a concierge doctor, we're talking 40K for the year to access your doctor, and then they still bill your insurance.
Mm.
Not all concierge medicine practices are that high, but I love the idea because I grew up in South Sacramento. Like my dad was a social worker. My mom worked multiple jobs, including Toys R Us and Wine Stocks. And I loved visiting her at those stores. But it's like, I hate that we get so much discrimination on all these different levels in this country. I love to play a part in, again, you're a human, I can do human medicine. And yes, there is a fee, but there's doctors who are doing nonprofit direct primary care models. And also, if you think about it, it's like the price for a membership per month sometimes irks a person out. But then if you think about, you literally have access to a physician, and there are non-physician providers doing this. I speak to the physician model because I believe that, dental assistants are not dentists. And I guess there's veterinary assistants are not vets. There's a level of training that comes with the thousands of hours more that we put in to be DVMs and MDs and DOs that go ahead. I'm sorry.
And VMDs in my case. If you grab UPenn, then you're a VMD. That's
Okay, VMDs.
the
Thank
only
you. I
weird
did not
one.
know that. Yeah. But I speak to the physician DPC model.
Mm.
There are so many things to think about in terms of if you zoom out, the time you have to take off of work to pick up your kids to be able to take them to the doctor versus in DPC, just text me a picture when you get home.
Oh,
Like,
love it.
yeah. I mean, it's just same thing. Like for your patients, I'm assuming it's like, what is this cut on my, or this bug on my dog or like the cut? It's like, why does this require an in-office visit? It should not require a person to come in to review their lab results, except that's how we work in human medicine because we get the cash, the codes. Like I said this in medical economics. It's like, how many Chuck E. Cheese tickets can I amass in one session at Chuck E. Cheese's? It's like, that's how people act with codes. It's like, oh my God, if I add a 25 modifier, I can bring in an extra 42 cents. Amazing. Like, and it's
gross.
it is.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, this is really, really fascinating because concierge medicine, that's the type of medicine that I practice. I'm membership based. I'm one of a very, very small handful of people who are doing that. And many of the people who are doing it currently were trained by me. So it's like we're very, very small group of people doing it. And I think my concierge practice sounds more in line with like the classical DPC. I'm charging hefty because I'm, going into the home and, but I'm not in the realm of $40,000.
Yeah.
Like that's a totally different ballpark. I tend to have wealthier clients, a much smaller clientele, but I'm like not burnt the fuck out the way I used to be. I love my life and I'm finally like the doctor that I know I could always be. Like I'm a good doctor because I have the time to do it. I have the time to like care and feel my feelings and listen to my intuition and listen to the client, what they're hoping to achieve and what works for their lifestyle and the relationship they have with their animal. And so I'm just absolutely in love with the sort of membership aspect of things. I think that's made a huge difference for me personally. And I think it's a little bit different than like the formal definition of like a retainer, but I think having some degree of regularity in your income makes it doable that you're not like, oh, I hope someone gets sick today so that I have an income. It's like actually in reverse incentivize. It's like, what's the word for decentivize? Decentivize? I don't know what's the word.
De-incentivize. Yeah.
De-incentivizes. Like I want my patients healthy.
Or
Like they're
disincentivize.
disincentivize.
We'll have to Google this.
I mean,
but yeah.
to me, it's in my personal, literal best interest in terms of my time and energy that my patients are well because I'm being paid. I don't need to like, it's not that it disincentivizes me to like go and do things when the animal is sick. That's what I do. That's my job. I'm a veterinarian. I want to make them better. But, I have more time for myself if my patients are healthy. I want them healthy. I do everything I possibly can. And I'm fully incentivized to rely on their health and to depend on their health in a certain way, And so I think that's a really like psychologically healthy way for doctoring to happen, for us to want to be literally on the same team. I want your animal healthy. That's what I want, like deeply with every bit of my, financially, I want that. Emotionally, I want that. Psychologically, time-wise, I want that. It feels like I'm having a little bit of a hard time explaining what I mean by that, but I don't know. It just seems like overall good vibe, like in the highest sense of the meaning of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's clean. It's like you went to school to take care of like us in different species worlds, but it's like we went to doctor school to become doctors so we could learn about taking care of the health of our members. But we went to do that to be experts and to be experts who knew their boundaries, to be able to
Right.
ask for help if we needed help, but to
Okay.
also be able to bring science to the table. And that is exactly in alignment with what we went to school for. And so that's why I say it's clean. It's literally like you went to doctor school to be a doctor and you get to be a doctor. Like that is it. Like that is the description of what these models are,
Mhm.
period. And when healthcare can be so easily simplified, like in the world of direct primary care, and I don't know if there could be an equivalent in the vet world, but like so many employers are choosing to forego the typical Blue Shield, Blue Cross, United healthcare plans and build their healthcare plans around an independent direct primary care doctor. Because if that DPC doctor has the ability to take care of 80 to 90% of things, like that's what we're trained to do, then that's a lot of ER dollars saved. That's a lot of urgent care dollars saved. That's a lot of unnecessary medicines if you can just buy the medicines wholesale and treat the
Oh,
same things. Yeah.
that's what
So
it is. It's wholesale medicine.
it is. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's mind blowing. Yeah.
Hmm.
That is really, really fascinating. Oh my God, I have a million questions. Where do I start? Where do I start? Oh my God. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of interested to hear. I sort of went on about how awesome my life is as the equivalent of a DPC. We call ourselves concierge in medicine. It's
Sure.
not the equivalent of like the concierge doc that charges like billions and zillions, but yeah. So we call ourselves concierge, and to me, I've kind of gone on about how great my life is in that paradigm. I'd love to hear how your life changed or what's different. What's your life like now that you have this sort of DPC wholehearted vision that you're adhering to?
Yeah. This is why I get excited to do my podcast because it's like when you are so excited to do something, you're in the right boat, right? So for me, I love having a platform to celebrate other people's autonomy in
Yeah.
the profession of medicine. I'm heartbroken when I think about people like myself, people who are currently going through the thick of like, they're just going into employed medicine. The statistics for California Academy of Family Practice was like 80 to 90% of residents go from training to employed medicine, which is so heartbreaking because I did that and I didn't know any better. I didn't know to think about anything different because I thought that hanging your shingle was. I mean, I was one of those people too who were like, you can't do that because fill in the blank. And nobody said to me, if you go to doctor school, you can open a business. Like high schoolers do that. Kids have lemonade stands, like legit. You can open a business and it's not that hard. But when it comes to my life in fee for service, it got to a point where I can absolutely relate to the doctors that I interview because it was like, what do you mean I get dinged if I don't have everyone's A1C for diabetes controlled to a 7.1? I'm like, when did that become like, who said that? Like, I would have these glimpses of like the middle finger that I feel for the fee for service system, but it's like, I did not,
Solidarity.
yeah, I did not, nothing pushed me over until, and I will share that. But
Yeah.
it was the frustration of I would love to use a point of care ultrasound. You have $5,000 corporation that is, pre-tagged for each clinic each year. Why can't we bring in the POCUS trainers and get trained on ultrasound so we can prevent ER visits? We have to approve this with 16 committees and like, oh, but at the end of the day, what we're really not saying is that it actually is not what we want or will approve because we make money when people go to the ER. Again, like highly focused on quality patient care. Amazing, amazing healthcare, corporate medicine. So I did not realize how unhappy I was until I left. I'm in that boat. There are
Oh,
people who are
yeah.
like, get me out of here. And I was like, so my husband and I did a job share. So I will say that in case people are unaware of that term in medicine, it is two doctors working towards one doctor equivalent. So like we never worked full time after residency because we intended to have children. We have a almost 7, almost 4-year-old now, but it was fantastic because during the pandemic, one of us was always home anyway. So it was wonderful to just roll over into that. But we were employed with what we call the golden handcuffs. Here's your
Yeah.
401k
Oh,
matching.
yeah.
Here's your salary. Here's your bonus. Here's your da da da. And then, all of a sudden it's like, now you've gotten here. You've moved here, all of these things. And now we're going to say you're going to be production based. And we're also going to say, oh, you don't need to see where we got the number of, the value, the reimbursement value for those codes. You don't need to see those. And so when I was asking for them, it was insulting to find out that they were paying rural family medicine doctors less than they were in the big city where they don't do full scope medicine typically. And that this data was years old, according to the MGMA data. That's one of the things that we pull from. And I was showing them contracts from other people to say, like, look, this place pays $50, $52 per RVU. It's like, it's insulting. And again, this is, a culture around me where unfortunately there was a lack of people asking, how am I being paid? And so then that was frustration bubbling. And then the corporate body came in and took over our regional medical center, in an excessive way. So we were pro family medicine, pro full scope practice. Then all of a sudden it was like, you move I have other ways to describe this, but it's like you move the people around in the organization and they have no qualifications to practice medicine, but yet they're the people making the decisions. They are the people coming in and, like, oh, we don't want to pay you. We don't need a vascular surgeon here. Like, so if you get a chainsaw injury, sorry, we don't have any more vascular surgeons in our system because they got let go or they quit because you fired one and you tried to pass the patients on to the other one who was like, peace out, man. You guys totally don't respect the training that we bring to the table as physicians. And so again, I was in that boat of I didn't realize how bad it was until I left. But when it came to this corporate being coming in, taking over our system, destroying the value of family medicine, struggling to bring in primary care to this day, I don't know what I am going to do, but I had learned about DPC in 2019, ironically, from an orthopedic surgeon who has also left this behemoth of a corporation and didn't really get the understanding what direct primary care was. How do you do it? All of those basic questions, the beginning questions, I should say, not basic. And then I got a contract proposal saying, we will fire you if you do not sign our contract that says this will be an evergreen contract. Your rates will never be renegotiated. And they did not say any transparent thing about this is how we're justifying the rate value. If you work for another company, we own your money. That's called exclusivity. If we needed you to practice in Los Angeles, I don't care if you have a family or kids, we have the right to move you. Non-competes, thankfully not enforceable in California unless you're with Kaiser. And
you can, they enforce it with Kaiser?
so the verbiage is different because you're a partner with Kaiser.
I
And
don't
so
like Kaiser. I have personal experiences, not me, but in my family, very bad stuff. But anyway.
Yep. So it was a perfect storm of me feeling very frustrated in our Medicare wellness physicals, the free visits that the Medicare patients, beneficiaries expect. It's the non-touch, no listen visit. Like that's what's covered by insurance, where we'd ask like, do you wear a seatbelt when you drive? Like that type of question. And it's like, I really spent a gazillion dollars to go to Creighton to ask someone if they wear their seatbelt. I could have done that in elementary school, but okay, this is what the insurance company is making me do. And so, it was that irritation fueled by you're going to be fired, fueled by I was 28 weeks pregnant when I got this letter that I was going to be fired and worried that I was going to lose access to my OB. And our hospital with a NICU access in the hospital is an hour and a half away. That scared the bejesus out of me that I was like, well, there goes that plan to be an employed doctor for the rest of my life. So after, like, this is my long form answer to your question, but after I have been able to be with my kids when I needed to, if their daycare is, daycare teacher is sick, cool, we're hanging out together, dude. If you want to go to Disneyland, this is before, school started. It's like, let's go, so it's things that I would not have been able to do had I had young kids in fee for service. I don't have the regret of like, our school will, like, days before a performance takes place, I say that there is going to be a performance, and I'm able to pivot and say, like, "Hey, I'm gonna have to move your appointment," or, like, "I'm gonna block this time because the ABC fashion show is happening." Like, whether I like it or not, it's happening. So, it's amazing, and I will absolutely, on my deathbed someday, be so grateful that I saw the light. I took the red pill. For those of you who are Matrix fans, I followed the rabbit. This is the right side of history, what we are doing in terms of taking a third party payer out of the mix. And I get it. Third party payers in human medicine have to exist for expensive things, but not in the primary care access world.
Mm-mm. Oh, thank you for that story. And I mean, there's so many people, I always think about this, like you weren't aware even how bad it was until it was just like an absolute breaking point. It always reminds me of the lobster, the frog, and the pot, and it doesn't realize where it is until it's too late, right?
Yeah.
And I think that happens to so many of us. And thank God you recognized like what you had to do instead of being like, well, shit, I guess I have to sign this contract and just like proceed with the matrix, instead of taking the red pill. And thank God, other people are starting to take the red pill too in the veterinary world as well. And I kind of love that part of what you've gotten out of this, like such, personal enrichment is the ability to be with your family and to be the mom that you want to be and to go to the dance show and to, like it's amazing how many veterinarians go into house call practice, the equivalent of what you did essentially, so that they could be a better parent, so that they could have that elusive work-life family balance, and just described it perfectly.
And I
Yeah.
think, again, it goes back to the importance of sharing our stories as doctors who are doing this in both the vet world and the human world, because there are so many doctors who are quitting medicine in the human world because they don't know there's any other option.
Oh,
And
it's
I have
great.
had multiple doctors on my podcast who have done medicine for 10, 15, 20 years in the fee for service model and then opened a DPC. It's like, you're not dead yet, man. You work so hard to be a doctor. You're a great doctor. You can still do that. And they're like, what do you mean? I thought I had to just retire, quit medicine because I'm so burned out. And I love especially talking to doctors who are, further on in their careers, who are still getting up the muster to say, like, F the system, with whatever is left in me, I'm going to do this the right way. I am
Yeah.
so proud of them for saying that.
Me too. Me too. Oh my God. Yeah, I definitely have that same kind of demographic of people who are like just done, retire, quit veterinary medicine. Like I myself was about to quit it. I had this sort of house call practice paradigm was literally the last straw. I had in my head, like, if this doesn't work, I'm done. I've tried everything. This is the last straw. If it doesn't work, I'm done. And it worked. And here I am. And so, like you, I'm just so passionate that's like, you worked so hard. Like, there's so many ways to do this. You just have to see through the veil of like what we've been made to think it has to be. How having someone else above us approving us and approving of our work and looking over our shoulder and telling us if we sold enough XYZ, gave enough penicillin shots or whatever the hell it was. But it's really hard not to mention it because it's so jarring.
Yeah.
But to have anyone dictating your medicine, let alone such an important part of medicine, that's like instant moral injury. And so I think that people are taking that red pill and learning like no one needs to approve your medicine. You can approve your own medicine. Like you can kind of get that confidence and be like, this is what I think is right. I'm going to do it. When I make that recommendation, I don't need someone else to tell me it's right or wrong or if I sold enough this or that. And it's such a mindset shift and it's so different, like all of us type A people, like part of, like you had mentioned, part of that type A-ness is wanting to get it right, not wanting to ask questions, but also seeking approval of someone, like literally seeking the approval of someone higher than us is such a part of the hierarchy of medicine, human and veterinary, that we're so used to someone above us to be like, yes, this is good. You are doing good.
Yeah. Yeah. And not second guessing because
Yeah.
it's so culturally like not okay to say no when someone tells us not to do something, when it's like we're board certified. We have actual degrees that are not earned online. And
Right.
we practice evidence-based medicine. That's how we're licensed. So we have trained to get to the point where we are taking care of patients. And that is, like I mentioned, the art of medicine part. And when you're disrupting that relationship, it does so many bad things. Like, I truly think that the pandemic could have been in a very different spot had people had access to quality primary care, a doctor that they could trust and that they could access. Like, I think there's so much distrust in the world for many reasons, but I think that like we have the opportunity in both of our worlds to literally change how our professions are valued in the future and how valuable the relationships that we're building are with our members, clients, patients of all species. That it's amazing, but this is where we've taken a moment to stop and say, what is it that we're doing? How can we do this in the right way? And again, like in fee-for-service, you don't even get a chance to think about, is this right? Like in most cases, there definitely are, like I said, those people who are freaking clairvoyant, in my opinion. It's like, how did you think that like there could be a different way? Or the people who, like I mentioned, I'm very grateful, like looked for a different way when they didn't know what to do, that they actively looked. Anyways, I digress. But yeah.
No, I love all the digressions. This was great. This has been a really, really enlightening and fascinating and juicy conversation, and I'm loving it so much. And we have to close up shop for the day, which is aggravating because we could talk for hours and hours, and I'm sure we will. But it's been wonderful kind of meeting a soul sister from another profession, as they say. And kind of before we end the episode, I had two questions I wanted to ask. The first one, I guess it's more of an open-ended question. Is there anything that you would like for people to know? Anything that you'd like to share with veterinarians? Anything about you that just kind of any kind of closing comments, any other thoughts that you have? And then I'll ask the other question after that.
I just think that the challenge would be that I would put towards the veterinarians listening. When it comes to, like I mentioned, I think that our domestic animals are humans. They look different. They sound different. But I think that if you are zooming out to say, if everybody is deserving of quality healthcare species, it does not matter if you're a human doctor or an animal doctor. Listen to the doctors who are doing relationship-based medicine and picture yourself in what they're saying. Do I relate to that? Oh my God, like, I didn't know you could do that. Like, that's my challenge, because I do see sometimes, and I was saying this before we started recording, that I worked at the UC Davis health bookstore where it was the campus of vet and human medicine. And there was always this very like, oh, you're just a human doctor, or like, oh, you're like a dirty vet doctor. It's like, it's like we are literally people dedicating our professional careers to taking care of individuals, families, etc. And that's why I say, like, zoom out. And if you are looking at it from how are we delivering care to species that deserve quality access to appropriate care, evidence-based medicine, high-touch care, accessible care, that's where I would say the challenge would be that I would put out there to people is listen, because the voices we're talking to combined really represent the answer to what it could look like for those people who aren't there yet.
Amazing. Thank you. That's some real wisdom right there. We'll do a second mic drop. And in honor of that wisdom, I'd like to take your order since we are in the House Call Vet Cafe podcast. Do you have a beverage that you'd like to order, or a favorite beverage that you'd just like to tell people about?
Soda water all the way, man. Like, Taco Bell has soda water.
What flavor?
Just plain, like no syrup. Legoland has free soda water. Like, I am a soda water junkie. My GERD does not appreciate it, but I do. So soda water all the way. It could come free from the soda button on the tap or charge in a Perrier bottle. I don't care, but soda water all the way.
Love it. Amazing. And there you have some resources to get your free soda water. Well, thank you so much. It's been an amazing conversation, and I cannot wait to continue this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the House Call Vet Cafe. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never have to miss an episode. This podcast is made specifically for you, so don't be shy if you'd like to reach out and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as The House Call Vet Academy, where I also share more valuable content. If you're interested in learning more about consulting for House Call Vets or the House Call Vet Academy online course and community, please click on the link in the show notes. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I can't wait for you to join us for our next episode of the House Call Vet Cafe.